Lucina is in a pretty unique spot in the very vibrant ecosystem that is the Smash Ultimate metagame. Because throughout the game's lifespan, she's always been like always the bridesmaid, never the bride character in terms of where she sits on a tier list. Maybe not so much now, but for a large chunk of the game's history, she's always been like almost a top tier, maybe the best sortie, just falling short of that S tier status. And that's fine. Like, I think A tier adds up. I think she belongs in the A tier. I think it makes sense. She's good, but not good enough to break the game. Sure, sounds good. Nowadays, though, she's actually about to sink to the B tier. Oh, shit. And I'm like, all right, I understand her falling short of the S tier, sure, but why is she still dipping? Like, if anything, A tier is where the good, honest characters hang out. Like, is she just not gonna be part of this club anymore when the next tier list drops? So yeah, there's kind of an unofficial group of characters in this game known as the honest or mostly honest, easy to learn characters that are good. So not Ike, but like Wolf, Palutena, Roy, and maybe Yoshi. Like, Lucina historically has always been in this club. In polls, she shows up as the most honest character in the game. She's won major tournaments before. She has some awesome high and top level players who play her. It sounds like there would be very little argument to send her to the B tier. Like, saying she's too honest is an easy answer everyone's gonna agree on, and it is true, and I really do think that the answer is that simple when you wonder why she isn't a top tier. But when you wonder why she's so close to not even being an A tier, that's what this video is going to be about. That is a different ass question with a different ass answer, and I want to find out what it is. And like, alright, I don't really care about tier lists when it comes to picking mains. Like, I like playing as Lucina, and that's good enough for me to main her, but still, it is interesting to see how characters' perceptions change over time. Like, over the game's lifespan, she's always been agreed on to be a good character, but now, when the 2026 tier list drops next year, this might be the first time in history Lucina is seen as a mid-tier in Ultimate. You know, huge news, right? Fuck, get Latinos in on this.
Naco, gato, pobre.
Alright, so Lucina isn't an S tier because she's a character that relies more on fundies and she doesn't cheat. Fair enough. True. Look at the top 10 right now. They're all cheaters. Whatever. But let's talk about why she's still a good character. You know, what does she have going for her? What put her on the A tier to begin with? Well, there's actually a lot of things she can do very well. It's kind of her thing to be good across the board. Here's what we like about her. As someone who's made this character since Smash 4, I think Lucina, in one word, is flexible. Flexibility is a little advantage you get when your character doesn't have any over-the-top gimmicks. For example, Luigi and Peach have some insane combos and they will kill you, but they can be zoned out, you know, not the best at approaching, they can be camped out. And then Puff has a crazy air game, but that means her grounded moves aren't the best. And Lucina, she doesn't super dominate any particular aspect or area of the game, but she also doesn't get completely shut down or countered by any particular character or playstyle. She has bad matchups, of course, but none that force you into switching out to another pick. Like, all her bad matchups are difficult, but they're doable. You can rush people down, you can keep people out, and even in matchups where you are forced to move first because there's projectiles in the mix, this sword isn't just for beating out attacks and winning trades, alright? Disjoints let you space moves, which is how Lucina can play the zoner game too, despite not having any projectiles. Camping like this is obviously not as safe as camping like this, but her sword is what she has to compensate for the fact that she has to come to you if you are the one that's camping her out. And this mid-range game plan is also how she can transition from a zoner to a rush down, because you can space moves, make yourself harder to hit, and when your opponent flinches and you catch a roll, or you know they're running away because they're nerds, that is when you turn into Roy with luscious blue hair, alright? She's flexible. No other character has this particular combination of range and mobility, you know? These two stats have some insane synergy together, and while there are a bunch of other characters with good movement and good range, none of them quite do it like Lucina. For example, in lots of cases, they can end up sacrificing their kill power, or they have to put up with hitboxes that are too small or too precise, and they have to be super locked in all the time, or they're just not gonna land any moves, and you know, stuff like that, while Lucina keeps the speed and the long, generous range, and her only downside is she can't cheat. Lucina doesn't move as fast as Mithra, but she has a great recovery and she can play defense whenever she wants to. She doesn't have Luigi combos, but she doesn't instantly lose to any character with more than one projectile. She can't camp you out the same way Min Min can, but if you mash on her, she can kinda mash back. No other character has their speed and range stats spread out like her. Except Marth, I guess. Sorry to the 3 remaining Marth mains. And by speed, I don't only mean that she runs fast. Like, no one knows this because very few people play her now, but Lucina has some of the best frame data in the game. I'm talking cloud level, alright? I'm talking like top 5 frame data. And this isn't just me coping about my mid-tier main. I hope. But yeah, I won't get too much into numbers, but she has single-digit frame data on basically all of her moves when it comes to startup. In case you don't speak nerd, moves that come out before frame 10 are pretty fast. Her slowest move is a frame 13 up smash and dash attack, but that move sucks. We don't we don't talk about dash attack. In terms of end lag, the tilts do suffer a bit, but they're not super laggy either, and the reach can make them hard to punish anyway. And then her aerials, when I said top 5 frame data, this is it, alright? This is where she shines, because other than downer for risky plays and follow-ups, all of them are insanely safe. The numbers don't lie. If you've ever felt like Cloud's moves are super hard to punish, well, Lucina's frame data is just Cloud frame data, except instead of having one borderline unpunishable aerial, Lucina has 2. Okay. I mean, hold on, I don't want to mislead you. Cloud back air is still more broken than Lucina's nair and up air, because I know they're all -3 on shield, but this move is huge and it kills, and Cloud not being a floaty character means that his back air is easier to time. But I mean, come on, -3 aerials on shield are something any character would love to have, and Lucina has 2 of these, alright? You can't sleep on her air game if you're fighting a Lucina who has completed her daily movement drills, right? Even the gimmick move, the shield breaker, is frame 19, which isn't fast, but if you're too comfy in that shield, it can still be tricky to react to, and once that bubble takes a little damage, any Martha Lucina main is gonna pick up on that, and, you know, say goodbye, block man. I love this move, check out my video on it. All of this and some light cheese sprinkled in, like the frame 5 invincible combo breaker up B that also works as a killing at a shield move. Super good low brain power edge guards and occasional shield breaks, and you can play the rest of the game without worrying over any super precise hitboxes or making it back to the stage or really shitty kill power or any other glaring weaknesses. Means that this character is great. Her edge guarding is amazing, her recovery is really hard to beat because she can throw out a bunch of stuff and mix the timing up on up B. Following up her, one of the -3 on shield aerials, is an incredible combo starter, making up for the size. Her throws don't combo, but they set up for frame traps. This forward smash is way too strong for a move that comes out on frame 10. You can mash down tilt and get some really cool follow-ups and setups, and I could go on. I have a video ranking every Lucina move. It flopped completely, but you know, I go into a lot of cool detail when it comes to her moves, if you want to check it out. So she's a good character, right? She does have weaknesses, of course. Zoning with a sword is possible, we talked about it, but it's 100 times easier to zone out with projectiles rather than just disjoints. Also, her throws could be better. This dash attack is complete ass. That sucks. And her kill power is good. Like, you can kill off of raw hits. It's good to not rely on kill setups all the time, but it's also gonna be kind of common sometimes for you to land a clean back air or side V or F smash and be like, wow, that didn't kill shit. But still, you know, she's a good character. That won't happen all the time, alright? You can trust her. And then this is where my video is going to deviate a little, because every other YouTuber would be like, yeah, she's great, but she's too honest and she doesn't have an X factor or a win condition, and say another buzzword and end the video there, which is true. They're right. But now my question is, why do other characters that also don't have a cheater aura like Palutena and Wolf and Yoshi, what do they have that has kept them in the upper half of A tier all throughout the game's life, even in the S tier sometimes? Well, Lucina, who's always been a part of this staples of the A tier club, is now super close to falling to the mid tier. What's going on here, right? What's going on? So despite all this awesome stuff I mentioned, Lucina is on fraud watch, alright? Like, if you were to ask someone at any point throughout Ultimate's history, what would be a good high tier character to pick up and learn the game with, which is a really good question that every new player is going to have at some point, the answer was simple. Lucina, Wolf, Palutena. There's other characters that were frequently grouped in here, like Cloud and Roy, Yoshi and Rob, and now we have Corrin in the mix, but these three were always mentioned when someone asked that question. Lucina, we talked about why she's good already, but Wolf and Palu are pretty similar when we talk about what makes them good. You know, both of them are pretty flexible. They can be played differently depending on what the matchup requires of you. Let's look into them a little more. So first we got Wolf, solid character. His blaster is insane. He has some of the best match stacks, some amazing aerials. They do it all. They space, they combo, they kill, they juggle. He has some amazing airspeed and fall speed, some crazy kill power and punish potential thanks to his combo finishers like side B and his back air. This back air is insane. But while his neutral and advantage states are pretty great and flexible, his disadvantage is kind of miserable. He doesn't have the best out of shield game or any crazy combo breaking options. His recovery isn't good. It's alright in terms of distance, but he can get edge guarded, and a lot of time he's forced to jump a lot to try to negate his mid run speed, and in turn he might rely on his aerials and landing mix-ups a lot more than he'd like to. He's kind of weak to that dash back and punish. And then Palu, she's another really flexible character. Her game plan is kind of straightforward and flexible. That That sounds like those words don't go together, but by flexible, I mean that said game plan doesn't instantly get shut down by matchups, kinda like these two. She likes to pressure her opponents, whether that's with projectiles or up close with forward air and back air, and get some good combos and win. On top of nice edge guarding, ledge trapping, she has simple kill confirms like down throw back air or up air. She has her cheese element with her invincible dash attack and back air. Neutral air is an abomination of a move that gives you free damage and juggles and combos, but her recovery can kind of be exploited. It doesn't go very far, even though it's a teleport. Teleports like look like they go really far, but hers kind of doesn't sometimes, you know. And then teleport from ledge can be predicted. She doesn't have the strongest out of shield gain. Her grounded moves aren't bad by any means, but they do have a little too much lag, you know, because of the animations last for a while, which means she is forced to play the air game a little more, while Lucina can mesh tilts a lot better. Looking at this, you can kind of tell why this trio has always been a staple of the A tier. Good strengths, fair weaknesses, and on paper, Lucina does absolutely compete with these two. She doesn't have any outrageously strong combo finishes like Wolf's aerials or Paolo's crazy juggle game, but she beats them both out when it comes to close quarters, out of shield, recovery and edge guarding, and ground game. But still, they're super similar in terms of the things they want, their flexibility, the fact that they're all balanced but still good, you know. They're like cousins, different personalities and backgrounds, different goals, but they all have the same last name in the end, and that last name is Versatile. Now, but in practice though, I think I found out what these two have that Lucy doesn't. As much as I think she has the sauce to be in the A tier, I now know why she's falling behind, and it's kind of sad, but it makes a ton of sense, which makes it even sadder. So now it's time to get into the sad part of the video. Lucina has a couple of reasons for why even in the A tier and even among the trio of good Fundies characters, people are questioning how good she really is, if she really belongs in here, and all the stuff I said at the start, which is kind of silly because she wins the matchup against both of these guys, but whatever. So Lucina, as we've covered, is better at scrapping than Wolf and Paolo. She has more mashing potential in the ground and in the air. This is why she was even in contention for the S tier early on into Ultimate and actually being up here for a little while in a lot of people's lists, because she does a lot of stuff pretty well, and if you aren't capping her out, she can keep up with you up close or keep you in check with her spacing if you're mashing on her. Now in the present though, that becomes a little bit less relevant, because if you're a character that has no choice but to move first, it's not looking good for you. So many relevant characters are spec'd out to directly counter with approaches, bad spacing, or anything that lowers your guard for a second. Lucina, she is a zoner. The sword does the job it's supposed to do. It's meant for safe pressure. She's good at walling you out, but like we talked about earlier, while zoning with a sword can work, you still need to be close to your opponent to do that. You're in their threat range, right? There's risk involved in that. Zoning with projectiles though, that's always going to be a lot safer. They get most of their damage up close, but if you camp them out, they have some solid projectiles that they can use to get in or camp you back, and they have reflectors. That sucks for Lucina, she doesn't have any of that. In 2025 Ultimate, combos are a lot more dangerous, even for characters that aren't traditionally considered combo characters. Like, everybody does a lot more damage. It's like inflation over time, you know? It's kind of like that. So the safer you can pressure opponents, the better, right? With her nice frame data and with this disjoint, like, her moves are super safe. Lucina does absolutely have the tools to play into the mid-range. But again, being near your opponent in this day and age, all it takes is one mistimed or misspaced move, one parry, one good call out, and it's over. Prepare to take 60%. You're dead. Goodbye. So we talked about how Lucina can kind of rush people down despite not being a rushdown character, but even given her close quarters potential, her floatiness, her fall speed, that can kind of be a detriment when it comes to her scrapping and mix-up potential. The fall speed might be the only thing keeping her from being a hit and run character, or even maybe a rushdown. She'd probably just be a better Roy if she was exactly the way she is but had his fall speed and a better dash attack. You know, Rom with a good recovery, I would main the shit out of that universe as Lucina. Floatiness can be fun for defense and recovering and edge guarding, like Lucina appreciates the floatiness, but also when it comes to mind game potential, fast fallers like Wolf do a lot better here because it's harder to react to what they're going for. Once they jump, they can do an empty landing and grab, they can dash back, bend out a shield move, and Lucina can kind of do this too, but it's not the same when this is your fall speed. And it's not horrible by any means, but fast fallers can play around here a lot more safely. Palutena is interesting because she actually falls a little slower than Lucina, but she gets so much off her grabs, and her tilts last for a while, so she can catch people dropping shield early, and some of her aerials aren't the safest on shield. So like, the fall speed may not be ideal, but she has an incentive to mix up her approaches. There's a risk and there's a reward. Meanwhile, if Lucina wants to mix you up and do an NT landing into a grab or something, that's cool, she can, but like her aerials are just better. If you can do an aerial, you do an aerial. Not to say her grabs or landing tilts are completely useless in this position, or that using them when landing is never optimal. They totally can be in some cases. Like Lucina for sure absolutely has a mix-up game. There are reasons to go for something else, you know, maybe your opponent is shielding a lot, or they're fishing for a parry, or they're gaming to watch, but still, as Lucina, landing with an aerial is just gonna be your favorite option most of the time. Her neutral is still good, and she can do whatever she wants to, it's just less mix-up dependent because one of her options is significantly better than her other ones. Once you're grounded, the floatiness doesn't really matter a lot, and she has this dash speed, so Lucina's mix-ups get a lot better. I can't talk shit about her forever, she's been in the A tier all this time for a reason. Like, the dash and her tilts do anything you could ask for, but one single projectile could boost her mix-up game greatly, and she doesn't have any, and she doesn't have a reflector either, so it's like, I get why she's seeing less screen time now. That sucks. Damn. Let's go back to the funny charts I showed you earlier. So she's a balanced character, right? Look at this nice little spread. But also, inside your neutral stat, there's a bunch of other, like, sub-stats to look into. Zoning, scrapping, and a bunch of other stuff, I guess. And in the end, these three have a similar score, but Lucina distributed her points a little differently here. And while her neutral still scores around the same as these two, and while overall she's still a flexible character, these two can just choose between more options a lot of the time. See what I mean? Like, they all have great neutrals, but a neutral with better mix-ups is just a lot more valuable nowadays. Lucina beats them up close, but Wolf and Paulo can pressure at all ranges, not just mid to close, and that does provide them with a ton of mix-up potential when it comes to how they want to play the game, what plays they want to move in, when they want to move in, or if they want to move in, and we go back into Lucy being forced to approach. So yeah, that's kind of where Lucina's left at. She's really good on paper, and she's really good in practice too, alright? I have faith in her and her player base. But zooming out of the people who made them and looking at the community as a whole, I do understand why Wolf and Paulo and other quote-unquote honest-ish characters have stayed in the A tier, while Lucina's been dropping off a bit. She's flexible, but not flexible enough to the point where she can do literally everything, and the small amount of things she can't do are some of the things that are kind of really important in 2025, you know? Don't misunderstand me though, Lucina mains can absolutely make it today. Not that tier lists always portray the absolute truth or whatever, like it's completely normal for anyone to disagree with them obviously, but I do still feel like calling her a B tier is pretty harsh, alright? The frame date is crazy, shield breaker is yet to be optimized, combo breakers are precious nowadays, and she has a respectable matchups against some top tiers, alright? She has this, alright? If she sinks too low next year, people are gonna stop playing her, and she's gonna be one of those low tiers that no one plays, man. I don't want that. I don't want to have the duck hunt treatment, man, where people forget that they're even in the game, man. That's so sad. We can't have that. It's disrespectful to me, and it's disrespectful to my religion. Help me spread propaganda to keep her in the A tier, alright? Go follow Mystery on Leon on Twitter, you know, like all their tweets, and call them cool. And me, subscribe to me if you thought I was cool, you know. I do a ton of Smash content where I sneak in subliminal pro Lucina messages. None of my subscribers have caught on to it, but yeah, if you're sub to me, you've been hypnotized. You like Lucina now. I don't know what I'm saying at this point. I just know that the masses be sleeping on the Princess Exalt, alright? She still has the sauce, just, you know, don't whiff a neutral. That's not something you can do in 2025. It's been outlawed.